Hello, everyone. My name is Sia Karamalegos, and I'm excited to talk to you today about how we can use HTTP Archive and the Chrome User Experience Report to build powerful data stories to encourage change in terms of web performance or other things, actually, as we'll see later on. So I'm going to talk about this in the context of the project that I used it on, which what I call Shopify Theme Vitals. And I'm going to show you this website and the data and how I built it. But I'm going to try to do it in a way that you can start coming up with ideas for your own ways to apply this data or get started with it. And I know there's a few folks on the call, Paul and Barry, although I think Barry's going to drop off in a bit, who are very experienced in these data sets, and they can correct me if I'm wrong. And also, I'll mention a few other folks later on if you need some help getting started. But yeah, about me, I am a performance engineer and web developer. I've been working in web performance for quite a while now, and I did work at Shopify for 2 years, and so that's why I built this particular site. But let's just go ahead and dive right in. All right, so first off, what is this tool? So you can see like the end product and understand what's going on. So Shopify themes, I actually don't know much about WordPress themes, but in some ways I'm guessing they're similar, right? Like they're just bundles of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code, so that people can build their e-commerce sites without having to deal with the code. So they'll like buy or install a free theme and then, make their changes in the CMS so that they can customize it for their own store. So what this site does is every month I pull in data for every theme. So if we look, there's like a bunch of themes in here. Dawn is, well, now it's the old flagship theme, but Dawn is a free theme that's built by Shopify. So we can see that in this data, what I have is market rank, but basically like it's number one because it has the most installs across the web. And this is from the Chrome use. Actually, that's from HTTP Archive. And then and market share. And then I have Core Web Vitals rank out of all of the web themes that are on here and percent of sites passing all Core Web Vitals. So, and then I have basically detailed charts for all of this information. So we can see like number of installs that's based in that HP archive data, the percent of sites passing all Core Web Vitals. This is the real user performance data, which is a part of HP, the Chrome User Experience Report. I'm going to dive into those data sets a bit more later on. But this is real data, and I show the last 6 months. And then I actually started recently to include the websites by theme version because, sometimes a theme can make a performance improvement, but if people aren't updating their theme version, they're not going to have that old data. So there, you can see there's quite a chunk of or a long tail of older theme versions in here, but the newest versions would probably have like the most optimized features. And then I have the Core Web Vitals plus time to first byte and first contentful paint. And that's the on here, and you can flip between desktop and mobile. So we have the real user data from the Chrome User Experience Report, as well as some detailed data from HTTP Archive. All right, so let's take a step back, and I don't have slides, I have Figma. So what we have is we have these two data sets. These are public data sets. This is really what I wanted to kind of share with you and get your brain juices flowing. I think that's not the right metaphor, but I can't. um, wait, Barry already called me wrong. I'm like looking at the chat. Um, so we have these two data sets, the Chrome User Experience Report and HTTP Archive. And you can read more on their websites. I'm going to share this Figma afterwards and in the YouTube description. But you can read more about them. HTTP Archive. This is a data set. It's run once a month on the top. Actually, let's see. I guess state of the road. This is, we can see that in the most recent run, which it's labeled as June 1st, but I think it runs, Barry knows. I always forget this, even though I asked him just like last week. I think it starts running not on June 1st. Oh, wait, it starts running like maybe a week after. Yeah, mid-June. They label it June 1st, but it runs, does it run mid? It runs before CrUX though, right? Um, and CrUX always comes out on second Tuesdays. But anyways, it tells you like the number of URLs. It's split between desktop and mobile. So you can see occasionally it jumps big time when they, I don't know what comes like, if we look over time, this is going to be like a really, there's really big jumps occasionally when they, I guess, have more capacity. And there's a lot of just detailed information. And what HP Archive is actually running is they're running web page tests on all these websites. And so they're getting all of that data that you can get from from a web page test run. So we can see kilobytes, total kilobytes. You can see total requests, HTTPS requests. This website for HTTP Archive is nice because you can see like the basic data that comes out of it. I'm going to show you even more data. And then you can actually look at, like, for example, JavaScript and images and stuff like that. But these are just one run on the on those websites. It's not the full user data. And so that's HTTP Archive. What I don't know if you ever noticed, but also as a part of web page tests, there's you get the full Lighthouse audit. So if you ever run a Lighthouse report and you know all those like individual audits that tell you what's going on, you can also get that data as well. It's like buried in there, but I'll show you that. But then the Chrome User Experience Report, actually, I didn't look ahead at this, but if you're not familiar with the Chrome User Experience Report, it is basically the all the real user data that comes from Chrome browsers, and then there's a few caveats about that. So definitely look at the methodology if you want to know exactly what data is shared, because like people I think have to be logged in and allow data sharing, but yes, and so this is all of the data from those top URLs that have enough data that they are willing to share the data, because right, we don't want to infringe on any privacy or anything like that. So Chrome, so basically the big difference between the two is that HTTP Archive is a single run across all the websites, but we get a ton of data from it. And the Chrome User Experience Report is the real user data from those websites from Chrome. All right, so those are the basic differences between those two data sets. So if we apply this to Theme Vitals, there's some really cool things that are going to go on because there's also this custom data. So if I go to a Shopify site, which I'm going to do the Shopify performance blog because I originally created this website, but also I know that what I'm about to do will work. So on every Shopify website that is a Shopify liquid theme, there is hydrogen, but that's like a totally different beast and a much smaller share. But there is a global JavaScript object called Shopify, and then there's a bunch of data in that. Helps if you can type. But if I do Shopify.theme, which is really the data that I want, then we can see that we have this data here, right? So we have schema name is like the official name from the theme store, whereas the name is like people change the names of their themes because they can like switch between different themes all the time. And then the schema version is the version of that theme. This is a really old version of DOM because we installed it and then we manually made updates so that we could also optimize DOM and then take those learnings back to the official DOM, like DOM latest versions. But so we can see this on any website. If we go to a different website that has like a custom theme, so Rothy's.com is an e-commerce site that runs on Shopify. And if I go to, this is probably too much information, but I can do Shopify. Shopify.theme. And we can see that this is, um, oh, this is interesting. I didn't realize they would have a schema name and a schema version, but this is a custom theme. This isn't like a theme you can get from the theme store. So it's not going to show up in, yeah. Oh yeah. See, the theme store ID is null. This is so I'm only looking at themes that are in the Shopify theme store because there's just a lot of junk data out there because you can just write a custom theme from scratch. It's not necessarily junk data, but the reason I made this website is to help people understand the differences in the themes that they can buy or use off the shelf. And so that the developers that develop these themes that are used on like, this is used on something like 90,000 websites in the latest crawl. And I want them to be motivated to make performance improvements. But it's hard for them to know this because they don't have access to this kind of data, or they didn't before this. I don't know if Shopify has plans to give them aggregated data in the future. There is actually a similar report, which which Mateus sometimes updates. Yeah, last time was December because they're busy. But this is similar data, but it's from the internal performance data at Shopify. But they're actually like good to compare. So I'm probably going too deep on that. But that is so we have that Shopify.theme data, and that was added as a custom metric in HTTP archive. So let's start looking at this data. I am in Google Cloud Platform, which is where you can find direct access to both HTTP Archive and the Chrome User Experience Report. They are public data sets. They are not free to query. We're going to talk about that in a bit. There is a free tier that refreshes every month. And so you have to make sure you stay under that or be very careful about what you're doing. Oh, it's very angry at me about. I tried to star a table and it got angry. But HTTP Archive, there's a bunch of tables in here. The one that I am mostly using is this one. Uh, Wait, is it crawl pages? Yes. So we can see that these are the different fields. So you can see we have, let's go ahead and do it in the preview so you can see that. There's going to be a lot of data. So they're just going to show us one row in the table. So we can see that there's a date. This is from 2023, but of course you can query just particular dates. Client is desktop, so there's desktop, mobile. Is there tablet also, or do we just manually put those into mobile? The page is root. Root page is like the home page. So they run on home pages and secondary pages for each. Yeah, Barry's dropping off, but he can answer questions later. Um, there's ranking. So like in terms of like traffic rank, they provide these buckets. So it's within the top, it's hard to read the number zeros, 10,000 websites. That looks like a web page test ID run. I never play with that. And then there's a payload. So this has a ton of data in it. So you can you can parse JSON for that. And then there's summary data, custom metrics, and custom metrics. Oh, not this particular one. This is custom metrics dot accessibility. This is the one where like my Shopify data lives. So I know that I can pull that out and use it for my data. So there's a ton of data in here. That's all I was going to say. You can actually explore this. There's also, they use Wapalizer. They forked it before it went into private maintenance. I don't know what you want to call that, but and so they maintain a fork for trying to identify technologies, but I didn't personally find that the best way to determine if a site was a Shopify site, but that was me. Um, all right, so what are we gonna do? Did I show this one yet? Nope. Let me show, it's down here. All right, so what I do is I come into BigQuery and I need to join like the data that tells me that custom metric of whether something is in HTTP archive with my CrUX data so that I can then show the CrUX data about it. Um, so I create a query and then we'll go on to the next step. But I realized I forgot to mention that I needed to join these two. And so here's that HTTP archive data, which you can look through these different tables and see what kind of data they have. There's like a wealth of data, but as I said, this is one run, so I don't use a lot of this data. But then I join it into, I don't want all. I used it's really frustrating. You have to scroll through all of the countries to see. I use the materialized device summary, but of course there's a million tables in here, and we can see that we have date. Uh, let's go into preview. Date, year, month, day, like different versions of the date, the origin, because data for the Chrome user experience report in here is only provided for the origin. You can use the API to look up individual pages to see if they exist, but in here it's all summarized by origin. And then you can get these buckets for like fast first paint, I guess is FP, average, slow, and whatnot. So I use primarily this data. I'm going to show you that an earlier version of the query, which it's enormous, but it's actually less complicated than the current one I use. So let me copy this query in because I want to show you. Wait, why is this taking so long to copy? Okay. And let's go into here and I'm going to pretend like I'm going to query it because I'm going to show you something. Actually, I'm going to show you a few things. This is probably small. All right, so you can see it's a massive query. You don't really need to understand this query, but what it will tell you is that you see at the bottom of the page, this query will process 9.01 gigabytes when run. So don't just run queries willy-nilly because you can accidentally end up with an enormous bill. This query used to be so much more expensive. This used to be basically like an $80 query, but they made changes to the data set. So now I can run this within the free tier every month. And actually, like I said, my current one is more complicated than this. It's actually like a multi-stage query that I break up because what you can do is you can query and then use the temporary table that's created for your results to then query some more on to that directly rather than eating up more of your price. So in terms of pricing, you get basically 1 terabyte of data per month for free. Now, I don't run anything else on GCP, so this is the only thing I have to worry about. Of course, if you have other things, you need to worry about that pricing. So keep an eye on this and make sure you're below 1 terabyte. And there's some other tools too. I'm sure Paul and I know Tim actually wrote up something about this a long time ago as well. All right. So what if you're interested, but you're like, oh my God, Sia, this query looks ridiculous. Well, there's a lot of very friendly faces that are happy to help. Barry and Paul being some, as well as Rick, although he hasn't done as much perf stuff lately, and Kevin Ferrugia. All these folks are in the performance Slack. But also, I wanted to tell you um, the way I got started in all of this was through the Web Almanac, if you've ever heard of it. I wrote the performance chapter in 2021. Oh, thanks, Paul, for sharing that. I will make sure I include that in the links to on YouTube. But I wrote this chapter, and what's really cool is I'm going to show you how you can find existing queries. So basically, you can come up with ideas just by checking out the Web Almanac. I'm only showing a previous year because this is the chapter I wrote, and I'm familiar with the queries that I used. But if you go to the bottom of any chapter in the Web Almanac, you can view the results, which is like the output of the queries. But you can look at the queries themselves as well. So you can take a look and say, oh, this is what she used for, web vitals by device or whatever. And you can use, there's like a JavaScript chapter, there's a CSS chapter, has some mega queries. I don't know, they had a million of them because they were looking at like every, it felt like every single selector or CSS property. So you can get starting, like I usually start with an existing query that's already out there because I'm not usually wanting to do something that's totally original. Like it exists already. I just want to apply it to something else. So like part of my query existed. It was, aggregated, oh, I guess it was in this tab. It was aggregated web performance. Like for example, here's largest contentful paint by device. So I wanted this, but then I just wanted it further split by theme. So I just needed to make those modifications. So you can kind of start with something that exists already and then try to make those modifications yourself and then also reach out to folks to help. So that is, we've explored that. I'm looking at my notes here. I showed you that massive query. Web Almanac is great. And I mentioned the folks that are super helpful and the cost. So the rest of this, which when we open up for questions, you're welcome to ask deeper on any of these, but I'm going to show you how I build the whole site because this site is super fast and you can make super fast sites with data. So what I do is I get this raw query data, and actually currently it's like multiple tables that I then save. And then I just use a node script to kind of munge the data to be in the shape that I want it to be. And I also use eCharts as a way to create SVG charts on the server side. So all of these charts that you see on, that's not my website. This is my website. So all of these charts, actually, I don't even think this is a chart. I manually built this, but all of these charts, these are all SVGs. And then to be accessible, I wanted to mention this. I also have a visually hidden note for every chart that gives that information in text form. So like for screen readers and stuff. But all of these charts, like I think this mini chart as well, and then all of the charts on the theme page, they are just SVGs. So I munch the data, I create the SVG charts with a node script. And so this is something I do once a month on second Tuesdays once all the data is released. And then I use Eleventy, which is a static site generator to build all of my pages. So Eleventy is really cool if you've never worked with the static sites are, the concept is that I don't want a server to run. I don't need a server to run because my data is, or my page, my content's not changing so frequently. Actually, you can even do this if your content changes frequently. There's ways to trigger rebuilds, like if you're using a CMS, like anytime you change, for example, a blog post, you can trigger a rebuild automatically. But what this is doing is it's creating all the files for the website, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Actually, I don't have any JavaScript files on here. I think I just have a few inline JavaScripts. And it rebuilds all of those, and then they're just sitting there and in the edge on a CDN. And so they're super fast to load. And there's, no back and forth. There's no hydration required. There's nothing else. But Eleventy is really cool. It's my favorite static site generator. I also organize the Eleventy meetup. But Eleventy is cool because I can have global data. So I save the data that comes out of these into a themes object, which has all my theme specific data. But I also have metadata, which has information about that data run as well as like my aggregated data. And then I can just build pages based on those. For example, this aggregations page is just reporting out the that metadata object, and then the themes pages are, well, this page is just a loop. So this is using, I use nunjucks. It Eleventy can handle like, I don't want to say any kind of HTML templating engine, but it's like a lot of them. It can handle liquids, and nunjucks are the most popular, but like pug, mustache, handlebars, there's a lot of ones. So like if you have a favorite, you can use that. So this is just like a for loop within that to display a small subset of the data for each theme. But then if I go into, I wanted to go into impact or impulse. I always forget which one has better. These two are high ranking one, but like this one doesn't have as good performance data. But and then these are created using pagination. Actually, I have it open. I'll just show you really quick what it kind of looks like. Oh gosh, I should have opened the actual page. Dial, support, newsletter, monthly summary. No. Let's see. So the aggregations page is just like, you can see it looks mostly like HTML, but then I have things dumped in using these double curly brackets. And then the theme pages use pagination. So this just says, like, normally you're probably thinking of pagination as like, oh, here's some results, and then I go to the next page. Well, I can paginate with the size of one. So every single page is only a single thing. So each theme is just built based on the data. So I really like it. I like it more than Shopify, because like you can do Liquid on here, but Shopify Liquid doesn't let you create your own filters and shortcodes, which is really cool because it makes it easier to do that in here. I'm probably going too deep on this part now. I talked more about this in the Eleventy meetup, but I'm going to stop talking and then I'm going to open it up for questions.